the idea about the international business.
Mm-hmm.
I was born and raised in Brazil, and I came here to this country back in '65, and I've pretty much been here ever since. So, I'm pretty much a U.S. citizen now, and I'm very fond of this country. And about, I would say probably about 3 years ago, I had two issues. One is I began to really begin to feel the global economy, how it's developing. And number two, I had also this allure to go back to my native country and kind of reestablish my roots a little bit. So what I did is I went to Brazil on a hunt and find mission. And
you hadn't been back since '65?
No, I had been going down there. Maybe between '65 and 3 years ago, I probably went down there like about 5 or 6 times, not too many times.
Yeah.
And reestablished some family contacts and whatnot, but also became aware that there was a tremendous opportunities for business, and including the business that we are in today here in the States. And the business that we're in is we are a support service company to environmental and geotechnical consultants and engineers. And what we do is we do a lot of the field work that they usually subcontract out, and specifically drilling, geophysics, utility locating, and some of the other field sampling routines that's done. And with Brazil having this opportunity down there, because they are about, with their environmental status is about like we were back in the days of, oh good Lord, pre-Ronald Reagan. I mean, this goes way back to the 70s. And the laws now are just becoming enforced, and they have huge problems. They have sites there that are comparable to our Superfund sites. And also the industry has grown tremendously because of the demand for raw products from Brazil, specifically the minerals of Brazil and agriculture and now oil. So that I came back with this expectation that there would be a possibility of business there. And concurrently with this, I have met several people here locally that are promoting international networking, international business, and these are the folks really with the Chamber of Commerce and the Department of Commerce and Florida Enterprise, and I became aware of these missions.
Yeah.
Okay, that they're having to mostly Latin American countries. That's the one I'm particularly interested in. And it's sponsored by, I think, different ones sponsored these missions. The Department of Commerce sponsored that up what they call the Gold Key Service, and then Florida Enterprise sponsors it, and has usually with a more political flair. And the local chambers is really more business specific. So all in all, I got very intrigued by it, and I decided to participate in one. And the one that I went to was specifically, the first one was to Honduras, and El Salvador.
Mm-hmm. Was that a couple years ago?
No, it was last year, early last year, maybe. Let me think now. Maybe it was late '06. Maybe it was late '06. And I went on that mission, and it was very, very, very useful. The United States had just recently, I'm not sure if it was actually signed, but it was in the verge of being signed, the CAFTA agreement. Mm-hmm. Which is the Caribbean Initiative, and these countries belong to that particular agreement, and there was a lot of dialogue about free trade back and forth. So I attended. It was very well organized. It was very well done in that they identify potential clients for us. And basically we'll go to a hotel and these clients come on a schedule basis. Instead of us having to go from here to there to there to there to there and spending most of the day in traffic jams, we actually get them to come to us. And it makes it very, very productive because you have a prospective client, make sure at 8:30, 9:30, 10:30, 11:30, and it's all day to day like that. And you can, in 2 days, I mean, you really can talk an awful lot about a lot of people, and you can actually get a pretty good feel of what's happening in the country, just talking to the local companies. So, made a lot of good contacts, both of those countries, and then I returned and started looking at responding as a follow-up to these contacts in the mission. And sure enough, we were having a lot of interest, and we actually eventually got asked to submit proposals, which is the main objective of a business person, is to look for opportunities to propose or to bid. As this all was going on, there was another program to go to Panama on a different mission. And I actually ended up not going with the whole group, but I ended up going within a week or two, almost like my own mission day, because I couldn't tie in my schedule to it. So I basically just did it on my own, my wife and I actually, and we went to Panama. And it was very good. Not only were we well received by the local representatives of the Department of Commerce, but they arranged for an individual to literally just drive us around. I mean, they met us at the airport, they took us places. We had to pay a small fee for the individual to do that, but it was worth every dime of it. And we visited in 2 days, a whole bunch of different people, including the Canal Authority. Which it would be difficult for me as an individual just trying to get in there. And I actually, through the United States Department of Commerce, it gives us a little more clout to actually go see with the Director of Purchase of the Canal Authority, which is somebody not everybody just walk in to see.
Right.
So that was very encouraging. It turned out that there was some commonality there on backgrounds and from a technical point of view, and they had in the past used some of the people from the company that I used to work for, and so it worked out very well. And that was pretty much the mission that I attended. When it comes to these 2 missions, I literally already have been to El Salvador. We have actually done projects there. And now we have an office in Panama, and we have done projects there.
Just in the last year and a half?
In the last year.
Wow.
So to give you an idea of how valuable this was, it allowed me to really make enough contacts to feel confident that what we had to offer was something that people down there were interested in buying. So we established an office in Panama. It sort of become our hub, and I'm very, very cautiously and carefully following the developments of the solicitation for the big Panama expansion project, which will probably is already some of the key bidders already have submitted they've been shortlisted, and it's the likes of like the Bechtels and the Weeks out of France and the big companies out of Spain. So the 4 finalists are now going to go into a proposal phase, and I'm talking to 3 of them. So it was a very good strategic move. If we were ever going to get into South American International, that was the thing. Earlier or late last year, there was a mission to Brazil, and that was with the governor, Charlie Chris, and I was planned and scheduled to go, was going to go, and then one of these big prospective clients in Panama told me that I had to go to this meeting that was really important. So I ended up not going, but I asked my staff in Brazil, one of the individuals down there that we are doing business now with, to attend it for me, and he attended. And he said that the mission was good, but in talking to him, I don't think it was as effective for a businessman as the other ones were, because Charlie Chris was there, and it was more political. It was more, him talking to the other politicians in Brazil, the big mega companies, and it didn't have that what do you call it, where the rubber meets the road kind of flair, like I had with these other missions. But I wasn't there, so I couldn't for sure tell you that. But that's kind of the feeling that I got in listening to my representative that attended the meetings on my behalf. So, in a nutshell, I find that these missions are very, very useful if it's done with the objective of developing business. If it's with a high-ranked political person, it gets so politicized, and it gets into the realm of politics that it may be great for the country, it may be great for the state, but for the local small businesses, it doesn't really help me.
Yeah.
But if I were to vote, is it excellent, good, poor? I would put it to excellent when it comes to the specific ones where you're going to develop business, and I would put okay if it's for political purposes.
So before 3-4 years ago, all your business was domestic here,
All our business was domestic.
and now how much are you doing international?
We're just beginning. We're just beginning. I think our total combined receipts right now is maybe, I would say by the end of this month, you may be looking at maybe $150,000. It's not much.
Yeah.
We're doing here $4.25 million locally, so it's not much. Here, as the economy begins to show its weaknesses here, and because of the maturity of the environmental market, I mean, we've been doing this stuff, the environmental market, for, good Lord, a quarter of a century. I think that I have made the move to make us more global, at least more Pan-American, because global is a big word, because I don't go to China, I don't go to the Middle East, but within the Americas. Because I think that the business of environmental and infrastructure development and construction, it's gonna boom here in these countries, because simply they're just trying to elevate themselves from a third world to a second world at least,
Yeah.
if not from a second to first. So
Tell me, just so I can understand, I mean, from a layperson's point of view,
yeah.
what is, describe the work that you guys do in terms that I'm going to be able to understand. 'Cause
What we
It's
do
environmental.
basically is we do the drilling, geophysics, and utility locating. The drilling, it has to do with installing monitoring wells,
okay,
and primarily to collect samples to evaluate pollution.
okay,
Okay, so if we drill at a gas station, we're looking for gasoline leaks and things like that. If we drill at a landfill, we're looking for plumes of contaminants exiting the landfill. If we drill around a impoundment at a power plant, we're looking for fly ash, metals leaking out. So what we do is we drill and we stall wells in order for monitoring to occur and for evaluation of pollution occur. The other drilling that we do is to determine how hard the ground is for foundations. To give you an example, when the crosstown collapsed,
yeah,
you remember that?
yeah,
We were probably the first ones out there. URS called us, and they were concerned there could be a giant sinkhole developing under that area, and they were scared there could be even more collapsing.
yeah.
So we went out there and we did our geophysics, which is geophysics is a way to use physics principles like waves and sound and seismic and electrical and resistivity to study what's below the ground. Okay? Traditional geophysics is used for exploration of oil, but we now can microsize that and do it for looking at shallow conditions. So we went to looking for sinkholes, and we still do a lot of that. We do a lot of sinkhole evaluations. A lot.
I had probably one of your competitors, I can't remember who it is now, came doing work at my house
Oh, yeah?
just a few months ago because there's settlement under my house.
Yeah.
And so yeah, they drilled some spots, they dug
Yeah.
some pits, they did ground penetrating radar.
Yeah, the ground penetrating radar probably was us. It was a company called Madrid Engineering.
I don't recall.
What was your insurance company?
Travelers.
Travelers.
Was they canceled?
Okay, so I don't know if the Madrid had a company, but we work with a couple engineering companies that have contracts with the insurance companies.
Yeah.
And when you file a claim, they go investigate. The engineers usually does the geotechnical report, but we do the radar.
I don't think I have. Whoever did it was the same company that did everything. I don't know if I have their card with me anymore. I might have left it at home. But
There's two of them, it's DII, BTL, Madrid Engineering, Andreev. There's several little companies that have good contracts with these insurance companies.
yeah, I don't know. People just kept coming in. I assumed it was all one company, but it might not have been.
No, they sub out a lot of it. They sub out of it. So we do that, and then the utility locating, which
Yeah.
is also becoming.
Is that pertinent in North
It's
America?
well, yes, because they don't have a clue where anything is. I mean, everything that's buried over there, they don't have any drawings, they don't have any figures, they don't have anything. They don't have a clue. They really don't have the slightest idea. This is true in Brazil, this is true in Panama, it's true everywhere.
Yeah.
And this infrastructure sometimes is very, very, very old, you know, and it leaks. I mean, one of the cities in Brazil, major city in Brazil, interior Brazil, called Belo Horizonte, the water distribution company for that state loses about 25% of their water through their lines. Okay, they treat it and they pump it and they lose it. And because they don't know where the lines are and they don't know where the leaks are. So it is a huge, huge problem for them, and it's a huge opportunity for companies like us to help them locate and map these utilities and find the leaks. This is more than just for safety purposes, you know. I mean, you can call sunshine and get the approval to drill the sidewalk.
Yeah.
This is more than that. You can get on private property and do that. You can get into, industrial properties to help out and locate the pipes to put an addition. And we did some work for the hospital downtown, and of course the DOT, relocating roads. So all in all, it's something that we diversify, and the reason why we got into it is because the equipment that you use for the geophysical studies is almost identical. It's GPR, is radio detection, is all the non-destructive technologies using applied physics. So it's the same, some of the same principles, and you're just looking for pipes and cables in lieu of single.
Right. So the opportunity that you've seen in these missions, if I can summarize, if I understand it correctly, is that like you said, they're where we were 30 years ago, and just have to kind of go back through that second time and fix everything that nobody's paid any attention to for 50 years.
And it's interesting, because in the past, that business, the environmental business here, was really driven by, probably in my opinion, two key things. One is regulatory enforcement by the environmental regulatory agencies. And second was the fear of liability. You don't want to buy a property with a problem. You don't want to create a problem so your neighbor sues you. There was a lot of fear of liability. And in Brazil, and in the other Central American countries, the enforcement by the regulatory agencies, even though they have laws in place, is very weak or is corrupt. So what's driving them to do it is a business issue, or it's a fear liability issue. Same thing that happened here. You've seen movies here in the States about that. Companies try to hide it because they're afraid of the liability, not so much the cleanup cost. There was a cleanup cost,
Yeah.
but all the intrinsic liabilities that came with it, that was really what cost them. Well, in Brazil, it's the same thing. The big corporations in Brazil realized now they've been dumping dinitro bad things out there in that lagoon for 20 years, and all of a sudden, you know, the lawyers in Brazil say, you know, we can make some money if we can get a class action suit against this big monster Brazilian company, and that kind of mentality is begun down there. And also, if big national companies are looking to go public,
Mm-hmm.
one of the conditions to going public, especially if you work through the New York Stock Exchange, is you got to be green. You have to have a green element to your business. So a nasty paint company down in Brazil that, you know, a quasi DuPont won't be able to go IPO, whether in Brazil or here, because they don't have their act together environmental wise. So they need to clean it up. They need to show a proactive stance on cleanup and remediation. So it drives that regulatory agency. It is driving the business in Brazil and the environmental business.
Mm-hmm.
Panama's a little bit different, Central America a little bit different. I think that the free trade, they don't have the history of the heavy industrialization like Brazil does. So they're very much more into the tourism, and when it was agricultural, a lot of agricultural tourism. And the canal. But what this trade agreement does, it improves the standard of living. And their real estate market is improved. So what is driving force there really is more towards the engineering and the developments, which indirectly creates an environmental issue, but it's more of an environmental impact issue. It's not a contamination problem from past history. It's, okay, we're gonna now build this mega development, the golf course next to this beach, and we're gonna, you know, have a river running through it, you know, kind of thing. And it instigates environmental, is not a reactive environmental, it's a proactive approach to the environmental. And also generates engineering. For us is good, because whether we drill for engineering or do geophysics for engineering, we can do for environmental also, in the infrastructure.
So
And that's
if
the
they're,
other thing,
if they're going to
infrastructure.
build a hotel or something, they might hire you to, you know, to
They
test
do
the ground
test
for
the
that
ground
too,
to
yeah.
see if, you know, whether the buildings will stay up. They may test the ground to develop a background on the environmental conditions there before they do something and say later on that they were the culprits. Or they may have us do the testing before they buy the property to be sure that they're not going to inherit the problem. But in Central America, it's more really tied to development of real estate development, infrastructure improvements, and of course the canal. I mean, the canal is, you know, the canal to Panama is like, you know, oil to Venezuela. You know, is their money. It's their big money producing machine.
Yeah.
And you know, the canal now is, I mean, it brings in literally hundreds of millions of dollars a day into in Panama, and so they're going sort of a boom. And this is really began to happen right after the canal was turned over to the Panamanian, December 31st, 1999.
And that project is gonna like double the size of it or something. It's a massive expansion.
Yeah,
isn't it?
the project is pretty interesting. It's what they're going to do is they have two sets of locks,
Yeah.
and the way the canal works, you come off the Pacific and you go up,
Yeah.
you go up a set of locks, then you go up another set of locks, then you go across the lake, and you come down a set of locks. Okay, and there are two, on the Caribbean side and the Pacific side. What they're going to do is they're going to add a third one, and this one's wider because they want the super tankers to get through.
Right.
But they also recognize that what happens every time the ship goes to the locks, the water from the reservoir goes out. So it's a constant waste of fresh water. And they're afraid with the third set of locks that either they're going to waste so much water and they'll never be able to refill the lake if there's a drought or something. So they have created systems of recycling. So about 60% of the water that would have gone out in the past by using the methods that they use now is being recycled. So it goes into basins.
Mm-hmm.
So the water goes into basins of 2 and then comes in, the ship goes up, they waste 40%, they keep 60, and they keep using it over and over and over again. Which is, you're still wasting 40%, but it's certainly better than wasting it all. And I mean, you can imagine, there's probably 25, 30 ships a day that goes through these things, so you're wasting billions of gallons.
It's amazing they haven't run out already.
Well, and that's the other blessing in Panama. They've been blessed with a tremendous amount of water.
Yeah.
So they had, it rains from, I think from probably June through the end of September. It rains every single day. They have a very, very heavy rain, wet season. And that really, keeps not refueling, but it keeps replenishing
Mm-hmm.
the water in the reservoir in the lake, and that allows them to keep.
It's a natural lake, isn't it?
No, it's man-made.
Is it really?
Yeah, it was man-made. It was the French. That little isthmus of Panama
Yeah.
has been recognized as the shortest point between the two oceans for centuries. So the Indians used to use it, and then eventually the Spaniards used it. And then eventually the United States used it even during the gold rush of California to bring through there, across and bring it up to Philadelphia. And then the French came in, they started the construction of the canal. But they ran into problems with with diseases.
Mm.
And also because they were having problems also with the cost of the excavation. So but that time Panama still, I think, was part of Colombia, and then when they became independent, they agreed with the U.S. to let the U.S. take over the canal. So the U.S. took it over, and what they did is they started right back where the French were by trying to control the diseases.
Mm-hmm.
And then they started doing the construction. They realized that was just going to be too hard to dig down to the both sea levels.
Right.
And thank God they didn't, because it would have been really an environmental mess. Because you brought all the salt water. You would have brought all the salt water to the interior. But anyway, and somebody had the brilliant idea, says, well, why don't we just put some dams around these rivers and create a lake in the middle, and in this way we can just go up the locks and down the locks. And I mean, they built that thing. I mean, it was active from my understanding, it was active around 1920s.
Yeah,
1925. It's been around for a long,
dates to the
long
beginning
time.
of the last century.
Yeah, it's been going on for a long, long time. And it was always controlled by the U.S. until recently.
Yeah.
It was controlled when Noriega fell. Remember?
Yeah. Well, I think we signed the treaty under Carter's
It
administration.
was a Carter treaty. Yeah.
'79.
It was a Carter Trujillo's treaty back in the 70s,
Yeah.
with the turnover in the 90s.
Yeah.
But when Noriega decided that he will go to the dark side, that's when the U.S. went in there and got him, and that was already, the treaty was already signed at that time, and but it was funny because as I meet the Panamanian people down there, each one has their interesting story about that whole series of events, and just like they always wondered what was on the other side of that fence. and the first thing that happened was that was opened up. Everybody would go in there and have picnics because nobody knew what it was. And they realized it was just a very, very lovely, nice landscape, very enjoyable area to go see,
Sure.
So they used to go and have picnics there for the longest time. And now they did a smart thing. They took much of the land, they've put it protected, and created parks, and they have opened a few areas for development, but I think they are going about, when it comes to that part of the country, that's fine. Downtown Panama is a disaster because they had such a boom, and they're attracting a lot of people because of their favorable taxes.
A lot of Americans there.
A lot of going down there, but what happens is you get there and you stuck. Yes. Yes, you may ask a question.
Is that the molding for the vonage?
Yes, it is. You want to take it out?
Because Anne is with the woman on the phone,
Yeah.
and she's asking to take a look at the molding. So
Okay.
can I bring Anne here just for a minute? to take a look at whatever.
Well, she was in here a few minutes ago when we messed with it and it didn't work.
Okay, well, let me tell her.
Yeah, well, she can come in if she wants to. What else can I tell you? But anyway, that's Panama. But you know, they have this boom in real estate,
Yeah.
but their infrastructure hadn't kept up with it. I mean, you know, here we have concurrency.
Yeah, well,
Okay,
we
we're
try.
trying, but there is absolutely. I mean, they're putting these high rises by the hundreds. I mean, the last 6 months ago, when I stayed at a hotel, I looked out the window. There were 14 high rises over 25 stories high being built
In Panama City.
right within my site.
Yeah.
And the infrastructure is exactly the way it was back in the days of Noriega. The traffic doesn't move. There is no public transportation. The public transportation consists of school buses that they buy from Miami-Dade County area, and they take them down there. They painted them red. They call them the Red Devils, Diablo Rojos, and that is it for public transportation. And they're in it's just insane traffic down there. Flooding all the time because, like I mentioned to you, they have tremendous amount of rain. So they flood all the time to a point. Some of the roads, I mean, I'm talking about main roads, don't have the manhole covers. It's just a big hole.
Yeah.
And I've literally seen the entire wheel of a car just fall in it. So they're really behind on that. I mean, they're doing whatever they can as fast as they can, but yeah, you can look. You know, but that's the problem with Panama. They just, I don't know what Robert is doing with this thing here, but I'll move it over here. This is, you know, my marketing guy. He's got
Okay, I can't reach. Can you help?
the short stuff. Okay. Here we go. Well, I can't come down any more than this because it's attached to the ceiling. What do you want to know?
Okay, I need to know the model.
Well, it's a Lynx Cisco system.
Okay. Hold on. Go ahead.
Here, this is a VoIP, wireless G broadband router with 2 phone ports. That's what it is. So,
Okay.
Linksys.
I need to
You
copy
need-
the lights too.
Okay. But,
So
that's about what I can tell you about Panama.
So it's kind of interesting in the sense that you came here 40 years ago, and now you're going. Now the business has shifted, and now you're going home.
In a way, yeah, it's been somewhat. It's actually very rewarding to me, and it gives me a lot of just personal good feel, you know, because it's gone full circle.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I came here because of the opportunities, and I am 4 years later going there for the opportunities. It's sort of kind of go full circle.
Were you? How old were you when you came here?
Oh, I came here, well, actually to the United States. I left Brazil when I was 13, but I actually came here when I was 18.
Okay.
So I've been here for quite a while. I went here to go to school. I went to school up in North Carolina. And then I stayed working here. Became a consultant.
How was the company here?
My company is, right now, we are going on our 15th year.
What kind of? Most of your work right around here, or in the state, or?
We actually, we do, I would say, %70 of our work is done in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to say this, but the city of St. Pete, 0. We work probably more for Georgia than we work for the city of St. Pete.
Really?
We work more for Brazil and Panama than we work for the city of St. Pete. For some reason, we have just never been successful in working with clients that have worked for the city of St. Pete. I can't tell you why, but I just have never been able to. The geophysics guys do work all over the country.
Yeah.
We had a contract that we had to go to 14 different bases throughout the United States, locating their fuel lines at the different bases.
Like a military base?
Military bases, yeah. And we have been here in this area. I would say probably the big things that we worked a lot at MacDill. We do a good bit of work at, we have done a lot of work at the Tampa Airport. We've done work in downtown developments. We even work on that Trump Tower project that was downtown that got stopped. But so here locally, and then we've worked at Universal Studios, Orlando Airport. So we actually, for being as little as we are and as unique as we are, we have had some projects with a tremendous amount of renown and
Yeah.
visibility. We're really kind of sleepy town here in St. Pete. Not too many people know about us.
Yeah.
We have been awarded the Award of Excellence from the Small Business Administration twice as Subcontractor of the Year. Last year, the Tampa Bay Business Journal ranked us one of the top 50 fastest growing company in Tampa Bay. And we have been traditionally in the top 25 as minority-owned business, because I was born and raised in Brazil. I'm considered a minority. So
Yeah.
this year we're not in the top 25, but I think we'll be in the top 30.
Any particular industries that are your most common clients? Is it builders or?
The environmental side is has been our clientele are consultants and engineers primarily,
Mm-hmm.
and in turn they work for people in the fueling industry and all the gas stations and all the fuel, and also industry, phosphate and manufacturing of different kinds. So we work for the consultants, the intern works for these types of industry. And that is true both for the drilling and the utilities and the geophysics. The geophysics leans a little more towards engineering, so our consultants that we work for work instead maybe like for the FDOT
Mm-hmm.
or for the big developers. That big development there in Clearwater, the high rise that we're going to build on the beach. We were there for almost 3 months drilling every single pile
Wow.
on that site, and then those high rises downtown. It's a pretty well-known geotechnical firm in town called Driggers,
Yeah. Heard of it.
and we would do a little bit of work for Driggers. We did the work for them over at the Trump Tower too.
Mm-hmm.
They do some drilling, but they usually don't go quite as far as we go with it. We may go a little deeper, a little faster, because that's all we do.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll do up to what they can get by with, and then they sub out the rest. Utilities locating, I think, it's funny because we just had a meeting yesterday, and we were talking, where do we go from here? The environmental industry is very mature. I mean, good gosh, we've been assessing things for so long that I can't imagine there's anything else left to assess. So we having to say, well, what are we going to be 5 years from now? And to me, in the United States, we're going to be focused on infrastructure. We're going to try to shift a little bit of our drilling from the conventional environmental drilling to maybe more the directional drilling, where we're installing conduits and pipelines and retrofitting pipelines and remediating leaky pipes and that kind of thing. When it comes to the engineering, I think it'll come around. I think we just right now that We had this big bubble in real estate, and I think eventually it'll come back around, and engineering will come back up, just like it's come back around for years and years and years. So we'll probably stick to that. And utility locating and testing and inspection, I think that's going to be some of our niches here in the future. We can't just stop everything we're doing, but I think we're going to just gradually rotate. Together with all of this, we're picking up international.
Mm-hmm.
And the international may be some of the old businesses that we have here. So with all this equipment that I've been traditionally doing environmental, what's the best place to send it? I'll just send it to Brazil. So if I have drill rigs here that are doing geotechnical engineering, now we don't have any work in this area, we'll send it to Panama.
How many employees do you
Well, right now, I think probably close to maybe 35, something like that, 40. And that does not include the people working. If we include everybody, including the people in Brazil, I'd say a little bit over 40.
have? Okay. So is it a really competitive environment here? Are there lots of other folks that you gotta fight with?
I think it's not extremely competitive, but it's not a walk in the park.
Yeah. I'm just saying, is it a little easier overseas because you come in with a lot more expertise?
Overseas in Brazil, people recognize the technology that the United States has in the environmental market.
Mm-hmm.
So they appreciate that, and they look to American companies to bring in their expertise. So I can't go to Brazil and use a drill rig that they use in Brazil. If I go to Brazil, I got to be a step above it.
Yeah.
Okay. In Panama is the same way. I mean, their equipment that we saw down there was stuff that we wouldn't put on the road here. I mean, there's just no way. First of all, it'd be totally unsafe,
Yeah.
and we wouldn't put it because it would give us a horrible image. So if we just go in with the right attitude, the right mentality, with the right service, and that's the other thing, this is the service side of things.
Mm-hmm.
People are just not accustomed to, and the service is not, gimmicks. It's basic things like being on time. You believe how many times I've tried to do things in Panama, and then I'll tell people, I say, okay, we will start at 9. Okay, the client says, we'll be there. And we may not see them until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They won't call you. You don't have a clue why they didn't show up. And what we're going to try to do is, all we're going to do, I said, God, let's just make an effort. Let's always be punctual, and that'll sell the work more than anything else we can do. Because it's such a simple thing, but it's such a difficult thing, and there are its reasons. I mean, just trying to get downtown Panama, I mean, it could be 30 minutes, it could be 3 hours.
Yeah.
But if you can't get there, call, let them know why, tell them you're going to make it up on Saturday. I mean, don't just show up.
Yeah.
And it's such a different way to do business. It really is. They're not used to that, in productivity, good gravy. People get there at 9, they may start working at 10, but 11:30 they start getting ready for lunch. Then they leave at 12. They come back around 1:30. By the time they really get going, it's 2. By the time 4:30 is there, you start getting ready to go because you don't want to get traffic. So it's just a different working mentality. And if we can just bring a little bit better of this, modern way of managing and doing business,
So that's a
I
competitive.
think this is a sales.
That's a competitive advantage.
That's a competitive advantage.
Yeah.
That is to the locals. Now the Europeans are, banging at the door there too, but the Europeans right now will kill them price-wise.
Yeah.
Because they're coming in with rates based on in euro, and right now, I mean, if we have a driller we have a driller down there in Panama. They're from Spain, and their prices are just, I told him, I says, no matter what they price you, I said, I'll do it for 15% less. I don't care what price they give you. I'll do it for 15% less, because their prices are astronomical. I mean, it's just incredibly high. Because their overhead is high, plus, they have the euros high, and their profit margins are high, and so when it comes to pricing, We have a competitive edge now. We didn't before. We do now. And our technology is advanced, especially in environmental. Geotechnical engineering, about the same. But environmental technologies is more advanced by far.
When hey,
Yeah.
when you started out 15 years ago, did you think you'd be going home to do business?
No. No, when I started 15 years ago, it was just really just a challenge. It was just a challenge to be having your own business, because I worked for a big consultant for 23 years before I went into business for myself. So the joy and the excitement there was all being in business for yourself, you know, and being able to make your decisions, right or wrong, you know, and I never really thought that we would get to a point where we actually were going overseas and doing projects overseas. That really didn't even hit me until actually I started getting people that says, well, can you give me a proposal to do the geotechnical work at the El Salvador International Airport? I said, wow, now I really have to do something, you know. I'm actually going to have to send a drill rig over there to go to work. And it sort of kind of, and we're adapting as we go. We've done our shares of screw ups. You know, when you do something new like this and you haven't been in it for a while, inevitably, whatever it is, I think, you make mistakes. And you're naive, or you just don't understand the way business is done, so we make mistakes, you know. We made some screw ups with some basic paperwork, and we had a hard time just getting our rig back out of there because we just made some mistakes in the paperwork. We made mistakes with just understanding the rules when you go through customs down there, whether it's to greasing the wheels, through who to talk to, and so, you know, you want to do everything by the book, and it won't work.
Yeah.
You know, you sort of have to. So what I've decided to do is I put it in the hands of a local.
Yeah.
And let them deal with it, because I don't know how.
Yeah.
It gets me to a point I get so aggravated about things that I said, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to put somebody's hand that knows how to deal with it, understands the local ways, and let them do it for me, because otherwise I'm not going to get anywhere.
What you said you worked for a consulting company for 23 years?
Yeah.
Who was that?
It was called Law Engineering, LAW Engineering, and now it's called MacTech.
Are they local?
They have a local office in Tampa.
MAC?
MACTEC. MacTech is probably one of the top 50th largest engineering company in the country.
And you work for them here?
I work in the Tampa office.
In Tampa office.
Yeah, I used to manage their environmental operations in the Tampa before when I retired.
Why'd you set up over here then? Do you live here?
Because I lived in St. Pete, and I was commuting back and forth to Tampa, and I just decided that, you know, this is much closer to home. So I just decided to set up the office here. But actually our field operations is not here. Our field operations is in Tampa, over there in the industrial area, Tampa, there by the sea, by the port. And the other shop that we have is a little more in the middle of the state, so we can go to all directions without a whole lot of mobilization, is in Bartow.
Mm-hmm.
So we have an operation where we keep all the drilling equipment is in Tampa, and the other half is in Bartow. And our geophysics crew is very cyber savvy, so we just everywhere. I mean, we don't have an office literally. I mean, we call this our office, but nobody's ever here. They're all out in the field, and we are linked and computerized, and we have just one server here that basically gets all the stuff, and then processing reports go out. So right now it's all very interesting. You know, the only thing for me now is you know, I'm getting to a point that I'm having to think of an exit strategy.
How old are you?
I'm 61. I'll be 61 next week. So I'm thinking, how do I do this? Now, when you start looking at international, that's a tough one. Because the exit strategy for the national is okay, because, you know, I have people here that have been good lieutenants for me. And nothing will please me more to maybe like gradually let them buy me out and
Yeah.
send me a check every month, and you can have a business. But the international is not that easy to find somebody that can do what I'm doing. For one, I speak fluent English, Spanish, Portuguese, Italian.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I can go any Latin American country, make a presentation, discuss any topic, and have a dinner conversation. And it's not that easy to find somebody with my experience, with the linguistics ability, that does the environmental and the engineering. And usually they do one or the other. But I was fortunate enough to have both. So it won't be an easy person to take over for me if I decided to retire.
Where'd you pick up Italian?
Because I studied in Italy
Oh, okay.
for a while. During that, you remember I was saying from 13 to 18?
18?
That was the period I was studying in Italy.
So you left Brazil at 13?
I went to Italy, and then I lived in Italy until I was 18 and came here.
And you went to school in North Carolina?
North Carolina State, NC State.
What degree?
Geology, minor in engineering.
Did the whole family leave Brazil when you were 13?
Yeah. My parents, my father went to work for the actual United Nations in Itally, the FAO, Red Quarters,
Yeah.
Food and Agriculture Organization.
It's headquartered in Rome.
In Rome, yeah. He went to work for FAO, and he stayed there for many, many, many years. And he used to do projects all over the world, and he was an agricultural engineer.
Mm-hmm.
So that's hence my ties to the earth, and also the travel, because he did projects all over Africa and Asia and Latin America and from the headquarters in Rome. And I came here to school and I stayed here, and he stayed there. And my sisters ended up married Italian. So now, my nephew, it's just funny now because my nephew's now graduated, and now he's actually running my office in Panama for me, because he's got a master's degree in geographical information systems, GIS.
Yeah.
And so he's running that office down there, and I got 3 Panamanians there helping him, and 1 driller from here, training primarily. The other nephew is here with me. He's going to school here at St. Pete Junior College, and I'm trying to get him to become more of an international business, so he can deal with some of this stuff for me too in the future. So there's a little bit of the family. So and the Italian was, I kind of grew up my teens there, so I know Rome like the palm of my hand.
Yeah.
Probably better to know St. Pete, because I lived there in those years. I used to be bopped around by bus and in ombrettas.
Yeah.
And I used to
like
go,
fun.
and then during those days, those were fun days there. And then I came here, and that was a shock. Boy, after living in Rio and then Rome and then Raleigh, boy, talking about a shock to your system. It was such a drastic change. Now, it wasn't bad. Raleigh was lovely, and the people were very nice. But boy, there was absolutely nothing in common. Nothing in common. I came in, I had been in the States for like 3 months when my father was getting his master's degree. And that was all I knew the States. And I had been learning English in Italy, so I could speak the language. But when I got to NC State, I had one of the guys, my roommate was from Mount Airy, North Carolina, and the other guy was from up in New Jersey, and it was me. And there was 3 guys absolutely had nothing in common.
And probably had a hard time understanding
And
each
we
other too.
couldn't understand each other. Actually, I could understand the both of them better. They could understand themselves.
Probably.
And there we were in Raleigh, and for me, Raleigh was like another planet,
Yeah.
because I was accustomed to the big city.
Yeah.
And Raleigh, well, even though now it's got to be a very big city, but at that time wasn't that big.
Yeah.
It was basically campus, and that was about it. And the capital, Charlotte was always the biggest city, and Greensboro, because of all the tobacco and the banking. But Raleigh was just like a little government town. It's like Tallahassee, so it's not big. And boy, it was such a shock. It was really a shock to me. But then I got married fairly young, had a son, and quickly divorced, separated. But my son stayed close to me, and he lives right here in St. Pete too. He's a computer geek,
Ah, okay.
so he kind of looks after my network systems and all this computer stuff we got going on. So it's kind of a little bit of a family business. You got family members. And I treat my employees pretty well. It's not in my nature not to do that. You know, and I think for that, more than anything else, I think I get a lot of respect.
Mm.
You know, and that to me, is what keeps us together. We have very, very, very low turnover. The people that leave, we are glad they left because they just didn't fit.
Yeah.
So all my key guys, I mean, you know, we're different as night and day, but we pretty much have stuck together, you know. Most of my key guys, I don't think I've had any key guys leave.
Yeah.
And in return for their loyalty, that's what I want to do. I want to just let them kind of take over the business with time.
Sure.
Figure out a way for me to exit and them to enter, you know. But at the same time, I can't just give them something that's like this, you know. So
sure.
I have to I got to keep staying involved with it to give them some guidance and the benefit of experience.
Well, you still got a few years.
Oh, and I still think so. But I'm enjoying this going overseas now.
Yeah.
It's and the wife too, because it allows us to combine a little bit of leisure
Mm-hmm.
with work. I'm not somebody that could literally just go to Panama or Brazil and sit on the beach and do nothing. I mean, I just couldn't. Either I'm going to be out there, you know, trying to find a real estate deal, or I'm going to go talking to some clients about environmental, or I'm going to go maybe do a training session for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I made presentations in Brazil to the committee that's setting up standards for construction of wells for the country, environmental procedures, you know, how to do that. Because I was involved with the ESTM here in the States, so I help out of that. So I don't think I'm going to just retire, go play golf. I just can't do that. I can't do that. It's just not in me.
The when you went on the Honduran trip and the other trips, did you? It sounds like you got a lot out of that.
Yeah, I did.
The other people that you went with, the other companies and so on, did they feel like they got
you know,
the same?
it appeared to me that while we were there talking to them, that they were all very encouraged
Yeah.
and very satisfied with what was going on. Whether they got something good out of it, sometimes depending on them as much as it depended on the circumstances in which they met the people, that I couldn't tell you if they were successful or not, but
Yeah.
the response and the conversations amongst dinner and us and various social events was that this is working out very well, you know, this has been very good. I didn't really hear any negative comments, besides the one to Brazil, that we thought this was just a bunch of political mumbo jumbo and really didn't get us anywhere. And that was, but the other ones were positive.
I'm just wondering if, I mean, it's interesting the way your business has, and even your personal life, has kind of followed this arc that now you're coming back. And for other people, on the one hand, it could be an example for other companies to say, hey, you know, look overseas. What you do here that there might be 6 other people who do over there, you're special, and so there's an opportunity. But you probably got a little bit more comfort in those environments than I would, for instance. Just cultural familiarity, language, etc. Might make it a little bit easier. Or is that not the case? Are they, are the folks over there just?
I think that 2 things. One, I think people should not be afraid that they're a small business, because majority of these countries, especially in Central America, there is no such thing as a big business. Everybody is a small business. A big business Panama is a company with 50 employees. So you shouldn't be afraid of the fact that you consider yourself a small business. because you're going to realize that the business you're going to do business with are not big either.
Yeah.
I think that you have to develop true partners to help with the local peculiarities and the local traditions in order to be effective. You know, when I try to do it on my own, I always ran into a hurdle. And when I look to somebody local to help you along, it was always better. So either if you're going for business, it's good to either establish a partnership with somebody that could be your client, or it could be a comparable services, or it could be a service that's complementary, and kind of go in with that attitude that you're going to create a relationship, and also offer them the possibility of them doing business here
Mm-hmm.
instead of just one way. Because, you know, you say, well, look, you know, if you help me here, you know, who knows, I might be able to bring some of your services to the smaller projects in the States as well. And that would be the other thing. The other thing people have to understand too is that languages is a barrier,
Mm-hmm.
but it's an attitude issue, is not the language issue. If you go down there with the attitude that everybody has to know English, you're going to have trouble. If you go down there knowing 20 words in Spanish, you're going to get further. You have to have the attitude that, why don't you speak my language, you, into, I am going to do my damnedest to speak yours, even if it sounds stupid. And that usually breaks a lot of ice. And before you know it, you find out that the party you're talking to really speaks English more than you thought. I would say that probably 80% of the Spanish-speaking professionals that I met in Central America never would say a word in English until they checked me out how I was trying Spanish. Within a matter of 2 contacts, they were speaking English to me. And so they know it, but they really look to see where you are with that kind of attitude. Needless to say, you have to be completely oblivious to, you know, race, religion, and looks and all of that. I mean, you can't, you just don't have any room for discrimination. As far as I'm concerned, you don't have any room here either. But you just can't, because in Brazil, it's a hodgepodge. It's a hodgepodge of everybody and everything, you know. And so those would be kind of some of my comments when it comes to time. And also, take advantage of Department of Commerce.
Mm-hmm.
People, you know, they're there, they offer, they can do so much. I mean, I let me tell you what they've done for me as much. They have actually gotten me 50% discounts in hotels.
Really?
Yeah. You know, I call them up, I say, listen, I am going to, I mean, especially in the early days of Panama, I'm going to go back to Panama to talk to this. Can you put me in that same hotel that you got me in that first time?
Yeah.
And I said, and I called down there, and they're trying to charge me $100 a night, and they'll call it for you, and I ended up staying there for $75 a night. They have, you know, we don't use what we have to use.
Mm-hmm.
Just like I think, you know, there's so much that people are willing to give that people just simply just ignore. Or just
So there's probably lots of other businesses around here that might be thinking to themselves, yeah, international, but how am I going to do? There's no way I could ever do that. But really, they could if they would just ask.
They could. They go to the Department of Commerce, find out. It is not as difficult as you sound. Take one of these missions. You're going to find out that, you know, after you get down there, you know, everybody still has one head and 2 legs, and, you know, they're not monsters from somewhere, and they want to do business as badly as you do. And the reason they're there, it's not just to give you work, but it's at times to see if they can improve their image themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's nothing would please a Latin American company to say, well, I'm associated with this American company out of Florida. And so everybody says, ooh, wow, you know. So whatever you do has got to be technically competent,
Yeah,
you know.
sure.
And so they're looking with as much enthusiasm, they're more probably with more enthusiasm towards somebody coming down there to present themselves to them, than they are apprehensive. Brazil's a little different. Brazil's very territorial. You know, they think that whatever the United States has to offer, they can do, and which is not true, but that's what they think. And I can say this because I'm Brazilian, so I can get by with it. But that's it. You know, Brazilian thinks they can do anything. American comes and I say, well, how are you doing this? He says, well, we do it this way. I say, good gosh, you realize what kind of trouble you're in if you do it this way? And they stare at me like, you know, who are you to tell us this? I said, well, you live your life the way you want to. I promise you, this is not going to work. And but they're a little more. But Central America, no, they're very receptive, very receptive. You know, I have been well received in every country in Latin America, Central America, without any problems whatsoever. And so far, I haven't found it to be unsafe. I have always felt comfortable. When you go to the Department of Commerce routine, boy, you know, you're treated like a king. You know, they
Did you,
treat you well.
in the trips that you've made, happen to notice, I'm sure you know other business people around here and you know more than a little bit about business. Did you happen to notice any other opportunities that aren't in your line of work, but where you'd think,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
there's that guy down the street that I met at dinner down to you, he can do this. And,
Sure.
yeah.
Well, you know, it becomes a networking event too, because you know now you're growing with the same group that you see for almost a solid week,
Yeah.
or 3 or 4 days. So there was a lady that my wife got to be very good friends with. She distributes cosmetics, perfumes, and things like that. And she was down there promoting her products. She's out of Miami area. And she got to be friends down there. She happened to be from Panama. So when we were going down to Panama, she called her up and she was asking about certain neighborhoods. What neighborhood is good, which neighborhood. And we just met her in the mission. You know, so we do pass on opportunities. I'm trying to think, well, this project that we did in El Salvador, we were doing there the drilling for a geotechnical engineering firm there, but it got over their head. So what we did is we came back and we gave the project, we got the U.S. Based company here in Polk County to go to El Salvador to help them out.
Oh, yeah.
So they ended up doing the geotechnical engineering for them because they had some earthquake analysis and stuff like that. And they helped them out. So, you know, we sort of act like an advocate on the behalf of other business here too. That's just business, you know.
I mean, I was wondering if there's any areas of business in particular that you saw where, you know, people around here, I don't know what it would be exactly, tourism, they probably know that pretty well, but I don't even know what it would be.
I think technology things, medical. You know, I don't think there's enough medical. You know, people down there are starving for good treatments, good lenses, good medical. Medical, I think, is a big issue. Telecommunications is a tough one. I don't know that much about it really, but I would sense that just consumer goods and just in general, things like cosmetics and children's stuff. Man, I tell you what, I never seen anybody spend so much money on kids like the Latins do.
Really?
You know, children products, toys, kids' clothes, little trinkets for kids. They go nuts over that stuff. And I think now with any kind of infrastructure-related product, water-related products, that's another big thing. You know, right now people are looking, how can I get water to my house that I can drink? And I don't have power. Can I use a wind turbine? Can I find me an inexpensive water treatment that I can pump water out of a river that somebody downstream is discharging sewer into, So all that, water treatment, water purification systems, secondary power sources, that is big too. That is really, really attractive to people down there. They want to distribute. Since we've been to Panama, one of the guys there that I met, he was in real estate. And since then, his wife has started her own has the people become more affluent, there are more and more uses of swimming pool. So she's got into swimming pool pumps, filtration, chlorine, and all of that. And you know, I mean, now she comes over here now to go to these trade shows looking for new technology.
Mhm.
You know, but if somebody makes an effort here that has a neat product, go down there and say, I have the latest, the bestest.
Yeah, I guess you were saying before too. I mean, with CAFTA and just general global business, the level of standard of living is rising in Central America.
Yeah,
So
it
there's
is.
a new appetite for products that you
Yeah.
never really thought about before.
And to them, it's like a windfall because, I mean, you got to remember, a lot of these people were making $300 a month.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden, they're making $600. They've had a 100% increase in their wages. They're just going, wow. I mean, it's still $600.
Yeah.
And they still can't afford most of the things available in the market, but they've got a 100% wage increase in a couple of years. I mean, when was the last time you had that?
It's been a while.
It's been a while, you know, so they're beginning to feel that sense of, oh, you know, wow, I'm feeling better, you know, and I think I would say that's the success part of open open trade and open commerce and stuff like that, because, you know, somebody, especially like Nicaragua, you know, Salvador, you know, the Sandinistas and all that, they were so repressed and semi-communist, and you know, and it was just corruption. And all of a sudden, you know, people can actually go to the Panama Canal and they actually double their salary in the last 2 years, and they might be able to buy a house. Isn't that a lovely thought?
Yeah.
For somebody that basically, you know, had to live with their parents all their lives.
Yeah.
It's I wouldn't say necessarily not that we have, you know, that all these things are happening concurrently, and it is things so much better overall, but you can sense the change. You can sense the change. Brazilians, for example, look how much more they're traveling here because of their currency strength.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, their currency now, I mean, 4 years ago, for Brazilian to come to the United States, it was very expensive. You know, you're making maybe $1,000 a month down there, and your ticket was $1,000 to get here. Now their ticket is $500 to get here. All of a sudden, everything here is cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
So they're beginning to travel, and as they travel, they see other things, and they become caught in this consumer mentality, buying mentality that we've been in the binge for the last century, I guess.
Yeah.
And they're beginning to get onto that. It's amazing. You go to a mall in Brazil, and I look at it and I shake my head. They have lines to pay for the stuff that they're buying. And they're buying $80, $100 blue jeans and stuff like that. I don't see that here.
Yeah.
Not even close. But they're doing it there. And they finance it. They have ways to do finance it, which was something before you couldn't, because interest rates would be like 50% a year or some god-awful thing. Now with interest rate only at 12%, which to them is phenomenal, they can make payment. Everything you buy, you can buy a pair of shoes at the store, not with a credit card, and make 6 payments on it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way people just using credit, and they're voraciously buying stuff.
That's economy.
Yeah,
Gotta do it somehow.
that's the free enterprise for you.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, that's it. That's about as much as I can tell you.
That's pretty interesting, though.
I think I've had an interesting life.
Yeah.
I think I've had an
Sure.
interesting life. I've seen all ends of it, fortunately. Because when I was in Brazil, things weren't that easy,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and
Did you
And then
grow
my
up
dad-
in Rio?
I grew up in the outside Rio,
Okay.
actually. I was a time there that my entire possessions included 2 pairs of shorts, 1 flip-flop, and 3 t-shirts. That's all I own.
Really?
And I own a shoebox full of beetles that I used to collect from the woods. And then fortunately my dad was a very intelligent man, and he became better and better and better and better as he went through school. Things started improving for him, and he became a big success story. So, but you know, my family members, I mean, it wasn't quite slum, but it was close to South St. Pete looks like, you know, a special, nice place compared to where some of my relatives used to live. I used to go there for, you know, various events, birthdays and stuff. So, you know, I've experienced, I can really appreciate what I have.
Did you go back to the old neighborhood when you go?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Still the same? Or?
Still the same. Some of it's still the same. No, some of it's improved. The neighborhood, what as I was talking about just now, that was reading right now, has improved.
Yeah.
Now they have a big stadium there. They have a samba school where carnival takes place, and so you can tell it's some developments have occurred, but it's still modest for sure. Still modest for sure.
You still have family back?
Yeah, mostly like cousins. Mostly cousins. All my aunts and uncles have all passed away, but I have cousins from to extreme.
Right.
From ones that really struggle with life, and to ones that are multi-millionaires.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
right. Both extremes. I've been to dinner at both of their houses. The multi-millionaire, he has six servants. His house. And the multi-millionaire, her entire apartment probably no bigger than this room.
Yeah.
And you have to listen for bullets because the slums are shooting each other, and she lives really next to them. So you got to wait until they stop shooting before you run out there and get your cab to go home.
Wow. Wow.
So that's a Rio. And Rio's going to be pretty bad. Some areas. Beautiful city.
Yeah, I've done a fair amount of traveling, but I've never been to
Beautiful
Latin
city.
America.
Beautiful city. But it's I grew up in a nice area of town. Once my father got his professorship and he started teaching, so things got better for him, and so we lived in a fairly nice area, you know. And that area is still pretty nice and still very famous. I mean, you've heard of Ipanema, right? So we got not far from Ipanema Beach, Copacabana Beach. So that's the very famous areas in Rio. But if you go outside Rio, it's still pretty rough. Harlem type environments. The old Harlem, not the new Harlem. The
And then
old
you get
Harlem.
out of the city and it
It can be pretty rough.
really.
There's a lot of drug wars going on
Really?
between the cops and the drug lords up in the favelas, they call them,
Yeah.
the slums, and that's where the problems are. And that's usually been in the big metropolitan cities, usually Rio, São Paulo, maybe Belo Horizonte somewhat, Salvador, and some. If you go south, Brazil is completely different. It's much more European, it's much more organized, it's less poverty. It's like the United States upside down. The South is kind of like the north
Something
of Brazil.
about that, the equator that just does
Yeah,
that.
it's just hot-headed people. I guess they don't either. They just don't. It's hard to work, and it's you get hot-headed, and I don't know. It just seems like just the way it is.
Right.
So, and it's hard work. Agriculture is hard work. What else do you need to know? I've given you a lot of.
And I've taken up a lot
stuff.
of your time, and I appreciate that. I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't want to take it.
I don't know what the story you want to make out of this. I kind of just
I'm not
give you
sure.
a little bit of everything. It's hard to
it's
tie
really
because it's hard to tie my personal story to the business, but yet it is so linked that you can hardly pull it apart.
Well, I'll look at my notes and think about it, but I'm thinking, because we always, I write for the Neighborhood Times, which is a very local section.
Yeah.
The newspaper is always full of international business, this, that, and the other thing, but what does that mean to the guy down the street?
Yeah.
And here you are, a guy down the street, and you're doing it, and there's probably lots of companies around here that, scratching to make ends meet and don't even think about that possibility, much less how they would do it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just do a little piece about, here's a...
Pick up the phone, call George Martinez, Department of Commerce, go to a couple of his training sessions, talk to the girls there, figure out what a mission costs. Black people pay $500 and go on a mission and see for yourself. Tell them what you do, what you want to do, and what kind of clients you want. They'll arrange everything for you, and if you do that a couple times and it doesn't click, forget about it. Go sell in Alabama.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it's some people they just have a fear, but once they get comfortable, they're fine. But some people just never can overcome that apprehension, and they just have to make that effort to do it. You know, my case was a little easier because I already had the experience and had been out, but it was a leap of faith when it came to business.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, what do I have to lose? You know, there's a leap of faith when it comes to business. And I said, this is sounding intriguing. And George Martinez, who said, Carlos, I said, man, you're the perfect guy in the perfect business to go overseas. You know, he says, you have demand, you have opportunities. You know, you speak the languages. I said, what in the hell are you waiting for? And I said, you know, I don't know, I just said, man, you know, I'm just lazy, I guess. I'm with coffee in here, you know, it's just like, why do I have to get up and put on fancy shoes when I can wear my, you know, Crocs every day to work? And, you know, you get comfortable. But I'm glad I did it.
Yeah.
I'm glad I did it. It's been very rewarding. It's been a headache and a half, don't keep it wrong. I mean, today, I mean, we ship a motor over there to replace one of our engines, and it's supposed to be there today so that we can put the motor in and go in on a job on Monday or Tuesday. Well, they had Carnival this week, and the ship was late today. You know, the typical thing. It's not going to get there until Monday or Tuesday, so now we're going to have to scramble, probably work all night, Monday night, to get the engine in the truck so that we can be drilling at this client job. And this is a big client. We're talking about Chevron, so we're going to be doing the project in one of the big refineries. So we got to get it done.
Oh, that's in Brazil?
No, this is in Panama.
In Panama.
Yeah, we just won this contract. We Chevron has about 3, 4, or 5 U.S. consultants that they subcontract our environmental work to, and 4 of them are people that we already work here in the United States. So when it came time to Panama, it was very natural for them to look at us to submit proposals. And being that we're there, I have some advantages already because our drill rig is already there. I don't have mobilization costs, are not horrendous. I got a couple Panamanians that can do some of the work, and so I'm cost competitive too. So we're going to be working on a couple of Chevron projects down there this month and early next month, and hopefully in Brazil too. Brazil will be even bigger. We haven't finalized that negotiation yet. Because now we're dealing with contracts and the laws of Panama and the Spanish, and now we have, you know, these words are just like, oh, you know, how do you say negligent liability? You know, I don't remember that word in Spanish. I never used it before. Never had a need to, you know. So what does this contract mean? So you got to go to the lawyer there and say, listen, what does this mean? Fortunately, she speaks both languages, and so she said, oh, this means negligence. I said, oh, good. That's what I wanted there. It's a fun challenge. It's a fun challenge.
Well, I mean, you said it's been a headache, but you know, it's not like your job here is painless. I'm sure you have headaches here too.
Yeah, I have headaches here too.
Just there are different headaches there, and could create some great opportunities.
Yeah, I enjoy what I'm doing. I mean, you know, like anything else, it's just you can be frustrated because, you know, you can't get your sand wedge to get this ball out of the bunker. You know, just as bad as like you get upset because the motor didn't show up. I mean, you know, just you know, what's the difference? When you're staying in the golf course, you're supposed to be having more fun, but you're just as frustrated. Here, I'm doing something, and I think it directly helps other people. You know what I'm doing? I mean, I'm helping my family, giving them jobs they don't have in Europe, and I'm helping the locals learn a new trade that they would never have learned if I wasn't there.